Okay, we have a PSA from an estranged parent. I kid you not. Let's get into it, shall we?
PSA for the day. If you are a therapist trying to argue against estrangement not being a trend, at this point you're just being disingenuous with yourself. You are feeding into the frenzy. You're feeding into the trend. You're literally encouraging the trend of absolute destruction of families, lack of resilience in your clients, and so much more. But it's a PSA for the day, so I'll keep it short.
Okay, so for those of you that are new here, I'm a therapist. I work with adult survivors of child abuse, narcissistic abuse most specifically. And I work with all different types of clients. Not everybody is estranged. My specialty is around narcissistic family systems. I have about a third of my clients that I can almost guarantee you, because I'm not speaking in absolutes, will never ever go no contact with their parents, nor will they have to. They'll be able to manage those relationships because they aren't that kind of traumatic, abusive toxicity to the level of re-traumatizing their young adult children. These are young adult children in these cases. I have estranged adult children who are also estranged from their own children. I have all different types of clients in the same kind of genre because I really deal with narcissistic abuse and the unique scars and coping mechanisms and belief system that a narcissistic parent or an emotionally immature parent leaves behind. That being said, I want to get a little technical here, and then we're going to talk about how the estranged parents carry the word trend as this sort of badge of protection. So let's first get into the definition. Let's read it together. And I didn't just go anywhere. I want to head to the Merriam-Webster definition. So, I don't want to throw dirt on me if you want. I don't really care. Whatever. I almost wanted to duet this or stitch this with this creator, but this creator leaves me alone, and I think there's a good reason for that. And I don't want to I don't want to get involved in a back and forth. I can see somebody doing that right now, and it's just not worth my energy. So I rather just stay over where I am. A trend is a prevailing tendency or inclination, a general movement, and a current style or preference or a line of development. It essentially describes a general direction of a change or a pattern that is developing and becoming more common. I estranged over 30 years ago in like 1989. And I wasn't in therapy at the time. And in fact, I didn't go to therapy for probably, I'm doing the math on my eldest daughter's age, my first little pancake. I didn't go to therapy until probably 5 or 6 years after that. So therapy wasn't involved. There was no internet, and books on family dynamics and things like that didn't become really widely available until the late 80s, early 90s. Also, I wasn't reading those books. I was reading parenting books because I was terrified of, the fact that I didn't have a roadmap, and what information I did have was so bad, right? And so, parenting manuals, they don't come with manuals. There were manuals. Who knew? Apparently not the estranged parents. Anyway, my point being is at the time that I estranged, I never told people. I hid the fact. If somebody asked me a question, I'd be like, we're not really close, or I haven't seen them, or oh yeah, I'll see them. I would be very vague, if not sometimes downright lie, because I was ashamed of the fact that I was estranged. I didn't want people to know that there was something wrong with me, that my own mother didn't love me. I didn't want people to think I was a bad daughter because I couldn't be in a relationship with my mother, because society at the time expected us to stay put. So if we want to talk about a trend, the trend at the time was that no matter how badly somebody treats you, if they have the title mother or father, they are entitled to a relationship. You owe them respect regardless of what that looks like in terms of how they treat you. That's it. That's all. That was the trend back then. And many of us did what we were told until we couldn't do what we were told anymore. And now here comes the internet. And we're all talking about going to therapy, family dynamics, relationships with our parents, our siblings, our grandparents, our cousins, our neighbors, our everybody. And it's become normalized to go to therapy and to get help. We know more about mental health. I didn't know back then I had CPTSD. It wasn't even on the radar yet. I had no idea why I was doing the things that I was doing to create my own chaos. There was none of that around at the time. So when this person talks about estrangement being a trend, I don't want to say trend, although, I mean, if we go with the numbers based on what we think we know, it could be. And I say it that way because we have no way of knowing how many people. I don't know what studies have been done now. Maybe there's a study. If there is, please drop it in the comment section and I will gladly eat my words. I don't have a problem with accountability and being wrong, and I don't need to be right. I don't know of any studies out there that have shown what the percentages were back in the 80s, back in the 90s, back before the internet. So how can we say that something is on the rise when we don't really know what it looked like back then? We know by society standards, we were pushed and pressured to stay in these relationships. If we want to talk about a trend, I think what I would say around that is there is a trend to normalize not staying in relationships that cause you emotional harm and negatively impact your mental health. I will stand behind that and die on that hill, for sure. And the problem with these types of estranged parents is they want to make it so that it's this outside force that is like the Pied Piper leading the children away. And that's not the case, because if the bonds and the health of the relationship was there, nobody could lead your child away under any circumstances. They couldn't. And I say nobody, I shouldn't be so absolute, because we do know that cults, like the narcissistic family system cult, damage families. We do know that there are other forces out there that people get involved in that have a heavy force, a heavy influence. But this is not that. What this person is doing is intentionally using something that's becoming normalized for us to take care of our mental health, break cycles of abuse, teach our children what healthy love looks like, and work hard not to expose them to toxic love. All of those things. She's hiding all that stuff under the word trend to evade taking accountability. She's also one of these people who she'll go, I hate the word boundaries. Well, of course you do, but you want people to respect yours. So this PSA is a bunch of BS nothing as far as I'm concerned. Oh wait, there was something else I wanted to comment on. Okay, so if I don't agree with this person, then I'm feeding into the frenzy. My goodness. I just don't even, I thought I had one more thing to say, but I'm just like, this person should do their homework. Really, they should do their homework. And I'm going to include what she wrote in the description about we're just leveraging this to make a buck. This saddens me, because there are parents out there who are estranged, who are looking for a place to find guidance. And they're being told that, no, you can keep hiding behind excuses and blaming other people and other things like the internet and books and therapists, and it's not your fault. This is what she's doing. She's creating more division and more damage. There was a study done by Ohio State University. I don't know when it was, but I think it's been in the last decade, and maybe even more recent than that. And it basically, they asked around 1,000 estranged parents what the reason for estrangement was. And over 80% of them blamed a third party in some way, shape, or form. That meant, a new marriage or a spouse, maybe not a new marriage, the other parent, just other things. Over 80% of them. That's astonishing to me, and also not surprising. And so when we go out there, when somebody goes out there and goes, well, it's because of a trend and it's because of the internet, when we're normalizing being in healthier relationships and standing up for ourselves and holding people accountable and wanting to be in relationships that feel safe. I always say relationships should have 3 components: being safe, seen, and cherished, And anything below that bar, well, at least evaluate it. I wouldn't be in it or waste my time. But when you have somebody out there doing this, they're feeding those 80%, and meaning like, and that translates to those 80% not looking for anything different, where maybe some of them could be swayed to go, well, yeah, okay, all of this stuff is going on, but there's good material out there, and I never looked at it this way, or at least read, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, something. Give your estranged parent community some things to work with, so that when their adult child comes back, because in the first 3 years, in my experience of estrangement, a lot of times the adult child comes back. And if that parent just says to them, well, you just did it because it's trendy, what the F do you think is going to happen? Anywho, I would love your comments on what you think about the trend and how you feel about it. I would also love you to put any names of any content creators that are estranged parents, the ones who are trying and not doing this sort of garbage, and the ones that are doing this sort of garbage, so that we can talk about it. And part of the reason I want to do this, it's important to me to talk about these types of estranged parents, is because I'm hoping to create also content for the estranged parents out there to start to look for better information and look for healing, not just for themselves, but for their relationship, should they get that opportunity. I'm a therapist. I want people together, not apart. I'm not going to push people together that shouldn't be, though, for that being said. And for the way that I work with my clients, it's always about them, where they are, and what their needs are. And creating the tools, developing the tools that they need to make decisions for themselves. So I'm not pushing in one direction or another. It's not for me to make such a life-altering decision. I would never do that. So anyway, thank you for being here. And I appreciate the fact that we do have the internet now to normalize being in healthy relationships. Also, because of the community it's allowed us to create right here. Love to you all. Thank you again for being here.